Here, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
So I basically summed up my own position as clearly as I possibly could. I didn't know what to make of cryptocurrency. I don't understand it. I made fun of it. It's clearly not going away. It's clearly a really big deal. So let's just start at the beginning, if you don't mind, explaining what is it?
Okay, what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the first engineered monetary system in the history of the human race. Full stop. So now to explain it, the first question is, what's money? The second question is, what's the problem? And the third question is, what's the solution?
Right.
Bitcoin is the solution. Now go back to the beginning. What is money? Well, an economy consists of goods, services, and property. You know, I want you to do something for me. I want that product. I want you to manufacture something for me. I want that house. I want that land. That's half the economy. Now the question is, how do I send 37 horses to you, and then how do we keep the books balanced? So you have to send me back money. Money is socio-economic energy. Money is monetary energy, or it's the energy, the backhaul energy that we use to trade with. If I can send you 10 bushels of corn and you can send me money equal to 10 bushels of corn, then we can trade with each other. So in the history of the world, human beings have tried different monies. We've used seashells. We used the giant stone coin of the Yap people. We used tobacco bales in colonial America. We've used copper coins, silver coins. We've used stone coins. We use glass beads in Africa. These are all types of money. Eventually, we got to settle on gold and gold coins as money. But gold was never fast enough as money. How do you move 10 tons of gold from here to there? So ultimately, people used ledgers. And those ledgers were issued by a merchant, or they were issued by a mayor, or they were issued by an emperor. And you can go back 5,000 years and you can find Sumerian tablets in clay where they've etched in like 37 bushels of oats in return for something. These were the ledgers. So the problem with money is, how do we keep track in a fair distribution of who owns a claim to what? If there's $100 million worth of capital in the economy of products and property and corporations and the like, you have to have $100 million of money. Now, if I issue $100 million of currency, it equals all the stuff in the economy. Now, if I start to inflate the currency and I issue another $10 million,
yes,
now I've taken 10% of the economy and given it to my friend. That's the inflation rate. If I keep inflating the currency, if I double the amount of currency, but the amount of stuff in the economy is constant, well, then the price of everything that's scarce and desirable doubles.
Yes.
Okay. If it's not scarce and desirable, it won't go up, but if there's 100 things and there's 10 times as much money, it stands to reason that the things cost 10 times as much. So money is economic energy. The problem is inflation. Because in the history of the world, we have inflation. When the Romans created gold coins, they start with a certain amount of gold and they would debase the currency, right?
Yes.
They would cut the amount of gold or cut the amount of silver in the coin. And when they cut it to a small enough level, no one would take the coin anymore. So the mercenaries don't want the coin. The emperor can't pay the mercenaries. The empire topples. If I just issue you paper, whatever the paper might be, and then I triple the supply of the paper, eventually the currency collapses. So the problem with currencies in the history of time is the trust in the issuer. You're trusting an individual, right? You're either trusting a banker or a J.P. Morgan, or you're trusting a family, the Rothschilds, or you're trusting a king or a prince, or you're trusting a mayor, or you're trusting a government. Now, if we look at the modern era, economists like Saifedean Ammous, who wrote the Bitcoin Standard, he estimates that the inflation rate in the modern era, dollar weighted, is 14%. Okay? Think about that. For the last decade, on average, all in the world, we've been inflating the currency by 14% per year. Now, it happens that that's equal to the rate at which the S&P 500 index is going up, 14% on average a year for 10 years running. When what's the issue? Well, what is inflation? It's not really well understood. Some people think it's CPI. CPI is the rate at which a market basket of consumer goods is going up, but the government gets to pick the basket.
I've noticed.
Okay, if I pick things like Domino's Pizza and streaming YouTube videos, they will never go up in price. I can actually adjust the basket, so I just pick things that don't go up in price. The Case-Shiller index is up 27% year over year, in July. So the price of that average single-family home is up 27%. Homes in Canada up 15%. The S&P index is up 34% this year over 12 months. What's the inflation rate? If you wanted to buy a basket of desirable stocks, the inflation rate is the S&P index. So I can calculate any inflation rate I want. Inflation is a vector. If I want to be rich, then I need to buy scarce, desirable assets. So my inflation rate's the rate at which Picasso's and Leonardo da Vinci paintings and stocks and property in New York City is going up in price, or a house in the Hamptons. That's a high inflation rate. If I want to be a consumer and live in my parents' basement and order Domino's Pizza and take Ubers and watch Netflix and stream YouTube, the inflation rate will be the CPI. It'll be very low. So the problem is inflation. Inflation's a phenomena whereby a government authority prints more currency, right? And why do they print more currency? Because if I want to pay $1 trillion bill, I either have to tax you $1 trillion or I have to print $1 trillion of money. Turns out that it's a lot easier to print money than it is to tax people. And so it's either inflation or taxation. Throughout the history of the world, from Roman emperors before, every single coinage system, every monetary system ever established collapsed because of inflation. If you look at the history of the Sumerian states, the Persian states, the Greek states, the Roman states, Middle East, look at all the Renaissance Italian states, look at every king of England. If you just go forward, you find every one of these currencies started by I issue a coin with this much gold in it, and then I cut it, and I cut it, and then I go to silver, and then I go to copper, and then I coat it with some brass or some nickel. You remember what happened in the U.S. where we used to actually have silver
quarters, yeah.
And now we don't because the silver was more valuable than the quarter.
Yes.
Why? Right? We're debasing the currency, right? So the problem is inflation. Now, another metaphor. The currency is to the economy what your blood is to your body, and economic energy or money is to the currency what oxygen is to your blood. So common sense says if I keep sucking the oxygen out of the room, if I suck the oxygen out of the room, you're going to either suffocate or freeze to death. And if I keep sucking the economic energy out of the currency, the economy collapses. In the extreme, you get ripped back to Stone Age barter, right? When the money doesn't work anymore, I have to trade you cigarettes for bullets.
Right.
And the problem with that is the economy becomes 1,000,000 times less efficient, right? If you don't have money, now, how many countries in the world have a collapsed currency? 66 are dollarized. There's 180 about countries. There's 130 floating currencies. All of them are weaker than the dollar. The U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. The U.S. dollar is expanding. It was expanding 10% a year for a decade, now expanding at 14% a year. It expanded 34% over the past 12 months. The dollar is weakening. Okay, it's like the oxygen is getting sucked out of the room. So Tucker, if I told you the oxygen is getting sucked out of the room and there's an oxygen mask drops out of the ceiling over there, what would you do?
Run for it.
Yeah, put the oxygen mask on. Bitcoin is the oxygen mask. Bitcoin, the idea of Bitcoin, let's move to the third spot.
Let me pause and say,
right?
You've made the most compelling case I've ever heard for the need for something like Bitcoin. So you're saying, just to make sure that everyone's following this, the whole point of Bitcoin is to escape the inflation vortex that has consumed all these previous empires.
The point of Bitcoin is to fix the money. And money is energy, and energy is life. And if I keep sucking the energy out of the economy, I'm sucking the oxygen out of your system. Either under the best case, you perform poorly. Under the worst case, I suffocate you to death or freeze you to death. That's the problem. That's why empires collapse. That's why economies collapse. And the problem is, it's not just a problem for an individual. It's not just a problem for a family. It's a problem for every institution. It's a problem for every company. It's a problem for every city, every municipality, every government, every civilization. They all have this problem. And you can generally trace the problem to, I fought a war I couldn't afford to fight, and I paid for it with money I didn't have. What is Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is the world's first engineered monetary system. And what happened is a set of engineers, nameless engineers, recoiled in horror after the great financial crisis with all the bank bailouts. And they looked and they said, this just isn't fair. It isn't right. We want to create a better money. And they used two technologies. They used the internet, the idea that I could network hundreds of thousands or millions of computers. And they used cryptography, the idea that I could cryptographically sign something so that it could not be tampered with anyone, friend or foe. And using those two technologies, they conceptualized the idea of an immutable ledger, if you will, a bank in cyberspace. What if 100 people got together, 100 people with money got together, and they said, we're going to create a bank in cyberspace. And we want to put our money there, and we don't trust each other. We don't trust the government. We don't trust any corporation. We don't even trust any one computer. So we create a program that keeps track of a ledger, 21 million coins, or shares in the bank, divisible by 100 million, called down to a Satoshi. So 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. You don't have to know that. All you need to know is there's 21 million coin units. You can't make any more. And they wanted to create it so that they could send their money to each other, to anybody in the network. They could store it for 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 1,000,000 years, forever. And they don't have to trust anybody. So they created this idea of Bitcoin. It's an asset that's protected by cryptography, and it's stored on a ledger. The software administers the ledger. The twist is we distributed the software on thousands and thousands of separate computers. Every Bitcoin node is running a copy of the ledger. So everybody in the world that has their money in the bank has a copy of all of the money in the bank and all the transactions since the beginning of time. So it's the immutable truth. Every 10 minutes, the system batches a set of transactions and then redistributes the money based upon the instructions of the owners. If I want to send you my Bitcoin, I send it and it goes to you. And every single computer on the network updates that. And they all check it cryptographically using modern encryption. Okay, so Bitcoin is a decentralized piece of software. The brilliance of it is it's a bank in cyberspace that nobody controls, nobody can corrupt. It's a bank run by incorruptible software offering a global, affordable, simple, secure savings account for everybody on Earth that has neither the means nor the inclination to run their own hedge fund. Right? You have some money, you have life savings, you simply don't want to lose it. You want to put it in a bank. So Bitcoin is that bank in cyberspace.
The remarkable case you just made on behalf of Bitcoin is predicated on the idea that Bitcoin is safe. It fundamentally is as a software matter that it can't be hacked. You said that the database that undergirds it is the most secure in the world. Why are we so positive that when the CIA can be hacked, that this can't be?
Yeah, when we started down this journey, we were looking for digital gold. We're looking for engineered perfect gold that you can move at the speed of light and program on a computer.
Yes.
And the theoretical answer to that is a crypto asset that's got a fixed supply that's secure.
Yes.
So we went on this search, and there are 10,000 cryptos, Tucker.
Yes.
Right? We had to look. Is it Bitcoin? Is it Bitcoin Cash? Is it one of the clones? Is it Dogecoin? Is it, you know, fill in the blank? We applied the MicroStrategy test. It's a 3-part test. Will it be banned? Will it be hacked? Can it be copied?
Yeah.
Right? If you can duplicate it 18,000 times, then it's not scarce and it's not unique. It's not the dominant one. Okay, and if it gets banned, that's no good for us, and if it gets hacked, that's no good for us. So first of all, how can you know the answer to this from the engineering itself? Well, you can't. If the year is 2009 or 2010, you don't really know whether it'll be banned, copied, or hacked, right? There's a lot of uncertainty. We started on our quest in 2020. So in 2020, we had 12 years of history. So what did we see? Well, by 2020, the system had been attacked thousands and thousands of times, but no one had hacked it. So we had $180 billion sitting in a network that no one could figure out how to hack. No one ever hacked it. People, by the way, people will hack the banks around it or the wallets around it, but not the underlying network. So we had 12 years of no hacking incident, and very good reason to believe it won't be hacked, because it is the most secure database in the world. And why is it the most secure? Because the way it works is you have to run a SHA-256 ASIC miner. It's a very special purpose computer. That computer only does one thing. It protects Bitcoin. That's all it can do. It can't stream video. It can't process for AWS. That network is that computer is millions of times more efficient at generating crypto hashes that defend the Bitcoin network. It's a special purpose thing, 7 generations. If you turned all of the AWS network or the Azure network against it, it wouldn't make a dent, because this is a very special purpose piece of hardware. So the technology that's used to secure the network is called proof of work. And proof of work is I pour a lot of energy into the network and I run it through an encryption algorithm, and that's a SHA-256 hash generator. And the combination of those two things with the protocol means that the dominant crypto asset proof of work network will always be the most secure one, and everyone will always defect from the weaker one to the stronger one. So we saw that it hadn't been hacked. There's no way to finesse it, no matter what you do, because it really is it's a brute force wall of encrypted energy. If you want to attack the network and even try to meddle with one block, you'd have to throw $10 billion of capital equipment at it, and it'll probably take you 2 to 4 years to get ready to do that experiment.
Okay, so that leads exactly to my next question. So that's really only a government would do that, and that leads to my next question, which is so like, what's a government? A government is an organization that controls a discrete territory, has borders, and mints the coins, issues the currency. So this seems to me like an existential threat, no overstatement, to the idea of a nation state, an independent international currency. Why would governments allow this?
Yeah, so that gets to the question of, will it be banned? By the way, it can't be hacked for what I said. It can't be copied, because you got to come up with the same $10 billion worth of energy and special purpose hardware. And if you had that much energy and hardware, you'd be getting paid $10 billion a year to use it to protect Bitcoin, or you get paid zero to try to copy it. So it doesn't make any sense to try to copy it. It's like the dominant monetary network, like Google and Facebook are also dominant networks. Once you get to that dominant position, it's obscenely difficult. Coming back to the banning, there's a kind of misnomer. People often call cryptocurrencies currencies, but it's not a currency, it's an asset. It's a crypto asset. So you're right, Tucker. If the government thought it was a currency, and if it competed with the US dollar or other currencies, then they would take offense and they will suppress it. But on the other hand, if it's viewed as an asset which competes with gold or with index funds or with bonds or property or real estate, just a store of value, or silver, then you can hold S&P index funds and bonds, and you can own land and you can own property. The government would simply like you to disclose when you sell it to someone else at a profit and pay your taxes on it, capital gains tax.
All right, now you got to put
Here's my key point, right? You're a family, you're an institutional investor, you're a corporation, you see inflation. You either buy some land,
yes,
you buy some stocks, you buy a bunch of gold, or you buy Bitcoin. Why would you buy the Bitcoin? Because you want the apex asset.
Exactly.
You don't want the dilution of gold, you don't want the dilution of stocks, you don't want the property tax on property, you don't want the maintenance headache of property. All other forms of property can be impaired, confiscated, inflated away. All other forms of property, right? You have rental buildings in New York City and there's a rent control and you can't evict your tenants and there's a property tax and it's hard to sell it and you got to maintain it. And so all other properties that come with a maintenance cost, they come with a risk. The idea of Bitcoin is digital property. It's digital gold, it's digital property, it's digital money, it's digital energy. The idea is, let's create something pure. It's better gold than gold because $1 billion of it is weightless, moves at the speed of light for free, and I can hold it in my head. It's better property than property because there's no maintenance costs and I can't seize it from you. It's better money because for the same reason, it moves at the speed of light, it's programmable. Yeah, try to send money on a Saturday afternoon. Try to send a currency on a Saturday afternoon from a bank here to a bank in France or a bank in Nigeria. You can't do it. Just can't do it. So it's not spoils of war, it's spoils of peace. This is another big idea I want to make. With everything else, if we monetize, if we have a bunch of money, if I give you $1 million and I tell you to go buy stuff with it and you buy gold jewelry and a house and a car and a whatever, and I want it, I put a gun to your head, give me your stuff, Tucker, and you say no, I shoot you and take your stuff. There's nothing in this world that you can own that I can't take with force, except Bitcoin. Okay? If you take the $1 million and you buy Bitcoin, and you take personal custody of it and you own the keys password is in your head. I hold a gun to your head, give me your Bitcoin, you can say no. Now, I can still shoot you in the head, but I don't get the property. You see, you can take it. This is the only property in the history of mankind, Tucker, you can take to the grave. The pharaohs wanted to take their gold with them to the grave. They created these pyramids to bury themselves with gold, but grave diggers and grave robbers steal the gold. You can't take anything else with you, but you can take the password in your head. Why is that significant? Well, you study the history of the Jews in the 30s in Nazi Germany, and most of them left with, if they were lucky, 10% of their assets. They would have left with all their assets if their assets were in Bitcoin. They couldn't move their house. They can't move a building. You can't haul the gold. Maybe you try to smuggle diamonds, not very good store of value. It's the history of every diaspora, every people. When you leave, when the Jews got driven out of Spain in, 1500, during the Inquisition, it was all over property, right? They're stealing their property. So what are property rights? Property rights is you can own stuff and no one can take it away from you. I had $1 million in a bank in Argentina 20 years ago. It was in US dollars. The peso was 1 to the dollar. The Argentine government sent a memo to the banks, forcibly converted everybody's dollars to pesos, and then forcibly devalued the peso 10 for 1. And I woke up the next morning and I had $100,000. I had $1 million the day before. They stole 90% of all the currency from everybody in the country overnight on a fax, without a law, without an army. Now, how hard would it be to take all of the property of everybody in the country with Bitcoin? You have to go arrest 60 million people, sweat them all in a jail for 90 days. How do you arrest 60 million people and sweat them in jail for 90 days? It's like 1 billion times harder. So Bitcoin is property rights, properly understood. And that is an important economic empowerment. It's a protection of individual liberties. It's John Locke's dream: life, liberty, and property.
Last question. If you had to call it, how high do you think in the next 5 years Bitcoin could get? This is per coin, by the way.
You know, Bitcoin's going up forever because it's a cap supply of 21 million, and it's going to go up because of inflation. Right, we're going to increase the supply of dollars, and Bitcoin's going to be fixed, so in dollars it goes up. It's going to go up because of technical utility. We're going to build it into iPhones and Android phones and put it into every computer and move it at the speed of light and build it into Twitter and Square and PayPal and the like. So that'll cause it to go up. It's going to go up for adoption, because of adoption. More and more people are going to bring their money. And it's not like Facebook. It's not like when Rupert Murdoch showed up at Facebook, he didn't bring 1 billion friends. When a billionaire joins a monetary network, they bring $1 billion. So when 100 billionaires show up, they bring hundreds of billions of dollars. When companies, when institutional investors show up, they bring massive amounts of capital. So it will keep going up with adoption, utility, and inflation. And eventually, you know, it will replace gold, which is a $10 trillion asset. Bitcoin's like a 1.2. It'll go by a factor of 10. And in 3 to 5 years, it'll certainly replace gold. Then it will replace indexes, right? The S&P index or bond indexes. It'll start to demonetize fixed income and equity indexes that are used as a store of value. What causes so much passion, right? What causes people to, you know, be willing to do anything to make this successful is this thought that we've finally found something true and beautiful with integrity that gives us control of our life back in a world where we feel like we've lost control to politicians, we've lost control to circumstances, and everyone's looking for some way, something they can believe in that's truly theirs.
Well, how is that for an explanation? Michael Saylor, what an amazing conversation.
Thanks for having me, Tucker.
Oh, are you kidding? We wanted to know what Bitcoin was. We certainly found out. Tucker Carlson today is the name of the show. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We'll see you every weeknight, 8 p.m. on the Fox News Channel.